Okay.
So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ATAR Cloud and Coffee discussion on all things modernization and transformation in technology. My name is Chris Oglesby with MorphWorks, here with co-host Bill Hunt of SBA, and we are excited about our show and today's guest. Before the introductions, this platform is hosted under the ATAR Cloud and Infrastructure Working Group with the goal of bringing lessons learned and ideas to the ATAR community. Our focus will be a conversation about our guests' experience, past and present, executing modernization transformation efforts. At the bottom of your screen or at the bottom of your Zoom, there is a Q&A button. Please feel free to enter questions and we'll work those into the discussion. Now let's move on to introductions. Rona Bunn is the CIO for the International Trade Administration, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Rona and chatting progressive modernization ideas for the past couple of years, and we're excited to have her on the show. So welcome, Rona, to Cloud and Coffee.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So I'm gonna hit you with an interesting topic first, the COVID question, but you had a different response because you guys. You and your career have been very progressive in rolling out technology, but at Trade, you guys actually had kind of a group that really helped with that from a change management standpoint. So, kind of really want to ask you about how that played out.
Yeah. Okay. So, like most organizations, we had to do maximum telework, and we had an environment where maybe about 20-30% of the folks actually really telework regularly. And so we had to quickly get folks up to speed on, using the technology. But thankfully, we had already been planning. We actually were planning to release, I think, Teams and all of its, collaboration function in April. So we had to move that up. But I have a user adoption group. We brought them in to help us to get folks to adopt the technologies that we bring in so that we're getting the most value out of them and really helping them to be more productive. So that team put together very quickly a plan, measured plan to get people to telework. We did to telework readiness, and then on top of that to collaboration tool efficiency. So they did specialized trainings. So they did one, of course, the training to get folks up to speed with actually how to telework. And then they took it a step up with how do you be efficient in telework, actually teaching them how to use the specific tools. My team was so awesome in that, they have this thing they call make it happen. They make everything happen. But they figured out, so there was some functionality that was not available through Teams. And that people really wanted, like, using the whiteboards and multiple rooms. They figured out workarounds and then had specific sessions on how to do that, because we have a lot of, we hold a lot of conferences, sometimes mini conferences, and we need that functionality, but we didn't have it available widely throughout the organization. So they came up with some workarounds and did that. We also stood up Genius bars. And so people can drop in with a business problem, and they will help them through whatever that is, whatever automation they're trying to get to, showing them how to use some of the automated tools for workflow, which has really helped a lot of folks with trying to get out of email and spreadsheets. So working through, some of the advanced functions of SharePoint, as well as using the full Teams functions with channels and all of the apps that are actually associated with a Teams channel. So they were doing. So now we've got folks like really, they're doing almost everything, all of the things that they're collaborating on together that may end. Some of these things may end, some of them are continuous collaborations, but for specific projects, like if they're working on oh, they're tidying up some process and they're working through and everybody's sharing. They're all using those tools. So they're using the planner tool, the notes function that's in there for their meetings. They're chatting, putting all of the work related to those processes in the collaboration tool, which is really helping them to keep things together. And so now later, when they're going to look for things, as we all have done, oh, I remember such and such sent me an email about such. No, now they just search for the team that they were working on, and all the stuff is there, all in one spot. All of the spreadsheets that they were using that are now, in SharePoint or wherever they're putting them, easy to access. So we had a lot of success with that. And that adoption group actually has not just, we have trainers on that group, but there are also change managers. And we have a change management practice that we incorporated into our IT organization that helps us to ensure that we remove the roadblocks when we're rolling something out before we actually start doing it, or we're identifying them timely in a rollout so that we can address them. And so I have some folks in there that actually do that as well.
I mean, first of all, like for anybody who's listening in here, I mean, that is it's a lot to say, but it's a whole lot more to do. Like that, it's easy to say like, oh, well, we just stood up a Genius bar, we just got some change managers. It was, not. I mean, but that is the humblest of humble brags here. I want to be super clear, like. Doing that over a short period of time is an astonishing feat of like government bureaucracy hacking, if not, actual implementation. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you got there on that journey? I think we were talking a little bit about before about, how you all really took this sort of like customer experience lens and really baked it into everything you do. And that's not where most agencies are at today, quite frankly. Like, they're still just like, we'll get to your help desk ticket when we get to your help desk ticket and you're going to deal with it. Like that's, there's a big journey there. Can you talk a little bit about how you all like transformed the culture of the organization so that you were able to do this and more specifically for small agencies like mine, how you were able to justify the funding necessary to do this sort of initiative and effort? So just for personal reasons.
Right, yeah. Bill's taking notes for this, Rona, just so you know.
I'm just,
So those are really good questions. And I'm going to start with the first thing that you talked about, culture, right? And so when I started, and then Andre, you guys know Andre too, right? He was the CIO of ITA before. He's the one that hired me as the deputy. But he soon after that became the CIO for the department. But when I came on board, we really tried to we wanted to change culture. And so it wasn't necessarily like that before. We really needed for people to believe it. And, we don't have a lot of people in my organization. So I'm going to tell you how we get this done. It's going to be interesting, but we are doing a lot. My folks wear 2, 3, 4 hats to get things done so that we can, provide what's necessary to deliver our mission and to serve our clients. So we work together to come up with, one, we changed our name. So I'll just say that. So we changed our name. We were the Office of CIO, and I think that's what most, IT organizations are. We are called Technology Services and Innovation. And we did that because we did not want to be insularly focused, right? It's not about the CIO, it's about our customers and what are we giving to them? We are giving them technology services and we are pushing innovation, right? And we also adopted a tag that says we're driving ITA's digital transformation so that we could believe it every single day. And every time we did something, we, kind of hit the bell and said, we're driving digital transformation. And so getting ourselves to believe that was very important. We also adopted some values that we wanted to live by every day. And in that is being innovative, always thinking about people. Those people include us and they include our clients. Always wanting to be process improvement is in there, being inclusive and allowing all voices to be heard in the process and making sure we've heard everybody. So those are the kinds of things that we built up and we kind of moved it throughout our organization. We brought in awards that are, based around these. Every time we see someone in the organization, internal to TSI and externally, our business partners, we recognize them for contributing to the values that we are trying to foster. So that was one thing. So we had the mindset, we built up that mindset to focus in on the customer. But also, so I wasn't able to just do some great, bureaucracy hack. That didn't happen. I just happened to think about it earlier in my plan to be able to give, our internal users the ability to be more productive. So we planned it in. And so we visualized, kind of a user adoption group maybe a year before, because I knew that we taking a look at the data we have, people are asking a lot of questions. They're doing things. I have folks that, business relationship managers that are out there on the ground with folks, and the folks are doing things that are kind of, I'm just going to say it, archaic. I mean, when you're managing by spreadsheets and email, it's very inefficient. We can't reuse the data. So we need to show them how they can be more efficient in their processes. And we can't do everything. So they'll be looking to us to automate, a lot of things that they can do themselves. And so we need to teach them how to do that. So we actually, wrote a contract for, in our customer support group, we wrote in a task for user adoption, and we wanted to bring that would not just train, but actually come up with a program and success metrics for the adoption of technology. And so that's kind of how we did it. And justifying the budget for it, I put it in with my customer support.
I mean, so, and I really love that approach. Like you actually you put the metrics in there, you put the actual contract language in there, and you just said, instead of being like, this is an extra, you made it a fundamental tenet of what you were doing. And again, I think that's fantastic and brilliant. Right. I mean, the only way you can actually get that CX baked in is if you start at those layers and say that we're just doing it. This is part of how we do business now.
That's right.
Love that. I love that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question on the customer side, and I apologize. I'm out west, so now the sun is starting to rise. So
great, you're getting that vitamin D.
It isn't that what you were talking about. It does make me kind of glow, but
he's radiant.
But so when you look at customers, do you look at both? Because I mean, you do have a unique role in how you provide support, right? So you have your internal. And then did you have the user group community or the user community providing their need for their customers, right? So ultimately they're providing a mission support. Did you guys take that into account as it related to some of the workflow and some of the automation?
Oh yeah, so so that takes me to another thing. And so we have so first of all, I just want to say ITA is really great, and we have lots of innovative folks in the business. They really can envision how they know their customers, and they really can envision how they can help them better. And so we have become more aligned, with the business and working with them daily to help them figure out how they can engage them digitally, right? And so ITA, we stood up in 2019, we stood up an Office of Digital Strategy and Engagement. And in that office, we have folks that are very focused on the client experience. So really kind of implementing this new Integrated Digital Experience Act, right? We have some really talented people from private sector. We always saying, like, people say to me, these people work for the government? But they are fantastic. They have done really, really big things for big names that you see every day. But they wanted to do public service. So they are here helping us to create digital, to create a digital strategy, really looking at the clients and understanding what we need to provide to them, and how the methods in which we are doing it now and how we could do it digitally. So we have experts in there. So digital strategy, we have digital marketing experts, we have CX folks, so the customer experience folks that help to develop the stories. And then we also have UX folks that actually do the development, that work with the development team. So we got kind of a blended team. You sometimes, in private sector, even in government, all those functions wouldn't necessarily live in the IT organization. But for us, in our infancy and getting a handle on client experience, it's working for us right now to have them in there. And we are working, training and coaching those in the business on how to utilize the tools. So we also, in the last year, stood up a brand new kind of web presence with a whole new digital ecosystem behind it. So we unified, we had lots of different, maybe 9 or 10 different branded websites that all look different. They were all managed or not managed by other people. And we brought it all together under one unified web presence that is kind of managed and governed by this digital strategy office. We also put in the tools that give us now the ability to have the analytics to understand how we are serving our clients, what are the best things for them, where we're doing search engine optimization. When people type in export, what comes up. So now we're getting above the fold, ensuring that we stay above the fold, that all of the pages are relevant. And there's a lot that goes into ensuring that we're doing that. We're showing the business how to use those metrics and do it themselves. So we are kind of trying to push some of that back out, even though we have some folks, and we have very few folks in my shop that actually do it, but they are managing that. And that's helping us to keep focus on our external customers. So now, very shortly, we've got coming up, we have that unified web presence down. Now we're getting ready to roll out the real cool stuff. We're going to have, in about 2 months, I think, we're going to have what we're calling My ITA. Just like every other, service provider that you have, when you go to their page, when you log in, you see all the services that you have. You're able to manage all the services in one portal that you are engaged with them on. They're also able to sell you new things. And so, and they're learning things about you through your profile. We're going to be doing some of that same stuff. And being able to help clients do a lot less touch, high touch things. We'll spend time on some of the other more valuable things for high touch, but some things they can help themselves. And now they don't have to dig through. It will be served up to them based on what we know about them. So some of the things that we're doing now.
That's all
with regard to the client.
That's it's a lot. Going back to my old client services days, when I was building web apps and stuff, being able to do everything from training in teams to SEO to end to end. That is a lot for a small to medium sized agency. But
yes.
We're doing a whole lot.
Yes.
We have a question in the chat. I kind of want to work in here too.
Okay.
Luis is asking, can you name a few of your customers you're dealing with? And I think for sort of the context for people who might not know a lot about what you all do, maybe you can talk a little bit about sort of your agency's mission and how you all work and sort of what those customers look like both internally and externally and how these tools are kind of helping to support them.
Right. And so overall, ITA is a part of the Department of Commerce, and we're all in the Department of Commerce, fostering the U.S. economy growth, right? And so, we're specifically ITA, we are helping U.S. businesses increase their competitiveness. And we're doing that from an international trade perspective. So we have three main components to ITA. I'll talk about the behemoth first, which is global markets, and they promote investment in U.S. companies, as well as they provide advocacy for companies that are looking to trade. And so they deal with, our focus really is on small and medium businesses. We do also help the largest, right, SBA. Right, we help the largest. We also help the largest also in breaking down trade barriers. And so from GM puts on, with the help of the other business units, let me just say, we all are integrated, but we put on really big events, a lot of events where we do a lot of business to business matchmaking. We will be we have people all over the world that work for ITA that are working on the ground, understanding what's happening in a lot of the places where you wouldn't be able to just pop in and have, virtual conversations and things like that, but they're learning about opportunities that U.S. companies could potentially bid on or participate in, right? And so we have a lot of programs that are focused on implementing business processes that will get us to those outcomes. And so outcomes, we are right now, I think it's going to change shortly, but for the last couple of years, we've been focused on increasing the amount of deals that are assisted. And so when we say that, that is, there are leads out there, we're introducing companies, we're helping them to make deals. And so, we're doing billions of billions of that, billions and billions every year of assistance in deals, and then also increasing our client base. So the other two, I saw something pop up there. I'm guessing you're going to get that in a minute. But we also are helping them to break down trade barriers. You guys, as you see in the news all the time, about trade, when there are tariffs and things like that, we are enforcing agreements. And so we have a group called Enforcement and Compliance. When people report things that look, like maybe people are dumping or they are, and that will change prices or they're counterfeiting, things like that, we will go in and help in the investigation and maybe bring that forward for a ruling on whether or not they should pay duties for that. So then we also have industry and analysis, they do, that's where we have a lot of the economists, and they're out there doing research and understanding what are the best markets for people to go into, that providing that data for, possibly GM, those folks who are helping them, or other companies may come in directly and look at that data. We have lots of other organizations that use our data to feed into to other models that they are using to make decisions about other trade activities. And so that was long, so I'll let you guys get to the next question, but hopefully that answered some of your questions.
Well,
So US companies, that was the original question, was US companies are our customers.
So the pop-up that you saw was actually just some praise from Tom, who's basically saying it's amazing to see that your knowledge and understanding of the client mission is awesome. So I kind of want to tie that in because basically says, Rona, you really get it. 25 years working with the government, and is one of the best sessions he's attended with your knowledge. And so I actually, I got to meet you a couple of years ago, and you were doing some pretty progressive things at a component within DOJ. And so, I think you do a good balance in conversations that I've had with you around, again, that client mission and the ROI focused on that and the IT investments, right? Because a lot of times in the modernization world, you take this big chunk of budget that you need to do to get to a better place. And I think, it's a little bit of, as Bill was saying earlier, cutting through some of the bureaucracy, but it is a little bit of driving that vision. And so, would love to kind of, have you elaborate a little bit on kind of how you've been able to kind of repeat that success.
Yeah, well.
Give us all of your secrets.
Right. Again, Bill is taking notes. No.
I mean, really, this show is just for my personal enrichment. But please.
Yeah, it's a fun trip. Well, so yeah, success. First, it is, you got to have a vision, right? I'm lucky though, in my current organization, that they actually have, from a business perspective, they have a vision. And so that helps. In previous agencies, didn't really have that vision. I kind of had to kind of pick certain areas and, figure out what we can do to help in that area. But here, they're very passionate about their customers. So it's easy to have conversations about that. But you got to, it's got to be a plan. And like you said, we're in the government. It is much more difficult. I've spent 25 years in private sector, and so I've only been in government for 6 now, I think. But it is a much, it's so funny that when you're in the private sector, you think that the government people don't work. Wow, how wrong people are. I tell them all the time. And we spend a lot of our time, you have to do a lot of planning to get this done. I was having a conversation with somebody else yesterday about this. In order to get things done, you really have to plan ahead. Something, that the government kind of struggles to do sometimes is to actually take a multi-year vision because the administration is going to change, or, but in IT, we can't afford to say that, right? Because if you slow down for a minute and not really think about what's ahead, you're going to be so far behind in a minute these days, right? And it's so much more important for us in the government to do that because it takes us a long time to get things done, to bring in human resources, to get capital resources. I mean, we put in our budgets, if we don't plan ahead, we put in our budgets two and a half years ahead of time. How do you have to be thinking about what you're going to do in 3 years in order to be successful. And so that's one of the things. And it's hard in both, couple of agencies that I've been in. It's just, people aren't thinking that far ahead. And so just kind of putting that in. And that's how I've been really able to do that. You come in, you got to put in a plan. And I can't do everything in my plan. I sit here, I live by my plan. It's here every day in front of me.
Hard copy even, I like it.
Yes.
So you cross things off as you go.
I do. I got a lot of, this one is actually a newer version, doesn't have the last one. I got coffee and all of the stuff. But I live by it every day. And so I have to keep reminding myself of the things that I said needed to be done and revisit and see if we're doing this. We need to do the same things and making sure that we're pushing to get there. Right. But that's how I do it. And, I make a joke all the time with this. If you've seen The Queen's Gambit, I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah.
Well, that's minus the drugs at night. I am moving pieces. Am I looking at the ceiling at 3 o'clock? Moving pieces. I don't suggest everybody do that.
But that is, it is, to your point, it is difficult, right? Because the government, if you don't get ahead of it with the budget, then you're behind on the procurement. And next thing you know, you've got an RFP that comes out that looks like it did 5 years ago. And in technology,
that's right.
Especially in today's age, right?
That's right.
You're now really behind. And so how do you kind of start looking at where things are going and the ability to progress in?
So it's so important to be looking forward. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge because not all,
You're still there. We got you. You're still
Can
there.
you guys still see me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, my computer just decided to lock. I'm sorry. But you can still see me. That's good. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge because, we don't all do strategic planning, right? And so across the whole organization. So it's difficult for you got to try to find the most important things and put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, sometimes all those different things don't mesh together. And so just trying to change the culture in planning at an enterprise level is, so that's some of the things that the CIO, you have to work on as a CIO also, is to try to lead people to that, because it's so important for the success of technology to have that.
You've hit on a bunch of things that really both resonate with me and are triggering a little PTSD, I got to be honest. Because I also spent 20 years in the private sector before coming to government, only a few short years ago. And it was the same thing for me. Like, you come into government, if you've never worked in government before, and it's like, oh, the people are the problem. And then you're there for about 20 minutes, and then you're like, no, the technology is the problem. And then you're there for like 20 minutes longer, and then you're like, actually, it's our entire system of budgeting and acquisition that is a whole failure, causing sustainment problems across the entire government. And then you can say Congress is to blame. But realistically,
I can't say that.
Anyway, so the
point
show, Bill. What I'm trying to get at here is something very tangible. Is that the thing that struck me immediately, like going through the presidential transition, the most recent one that I went through 4 years ago was last year's innovation is this year's wasteful spending. And that is just a mind-boggling thing to realize that, like, any plans, any sort of things you're trying to institute in the government, you have to do it in a way that is sustainable to a longer term. So we were talking about like the plans. It's not just about looking towards your budget 2 years from now. It's how do I make sure that the things that I'm implementing, these processes, these procedures, they stick? How do you bake it in? Can you talk a little bit about how, like, all of the things that you're doing, you know, how you're using these metrics and these tools, et cetera, to make sure that, like, this stuff becomes lasting and permanent and muscle memory for your organization instead of just a good idea this week, right?
Right. And so it's a struggle. I will tell you, because I don't necessarily have enough people, but the things, you know, so we're a little bit at a time, we're changing things and implementing things. So that's one thing. You can't do things wholesale, right? It is, you have to accept that you're going to take baby steps to get there. Sometimes it's going to, and this is in process change. And let me just say that obviously can't be technology these days, you can't be so slow, but for process change, you've got to do it incrementally and then celebrate when you make a change. So then everybody's aware of it and they say, yay, we're doing it. And then they remember that they're still supposed to do it every time, you know, fixing things when you're going to implement things and when they don't go as well as they should, you think that they should, you've got to go back and address the root cause of those problems, because they just compound if you don't. And then when it becomes a little bit chaotic, everybody rolls back. And so you have to spend the time to make sure people also, you have people who are responsible for a process and not just change it and then everybody kind of knows about it and nobody else is responsible for maintaining the integrity of what, you know, the intent of what was supposed to be done with that process. So that, you know, we're focusing on that. So there are times where we have to, you know, there's some things that we have rolled out that didn't stick, and we just have to accept that they didn't, and they are not the most important things, and we focus on the important ones because we can't do everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good segue to, because to a question that we got here from Dennis at the IRS, and I think that, you know, the planning part, right, in today's technology, and the question is, can you tell us about your cloud strategy and migration to the cloud? Because I think, you know, one of the things we've talked about a lot in this platform is, you know, that aspect of that the cloud technology and the speed at which it's changing. But yet we just talked about, you know, if you're planning 2.5 years out for your budget, but you got technology that between now and then is probably going to see how many variations, right? I mean, what do we see in 2 years in technology anymore? So can you spend a little bit of time talking about, you know, your cloud strategy and migration to the cloud?
Yeah, so we're 100% in the cloud now. I mean, we got like maybe one server, I think, on site networking, right? Networking related functionality, right? But we did, thanks to a previous CIO, he took a leap into the cloud, just kind of threw everything up there, and then we figured out how to optimize later. And so we, you know, and you know, that's the way to do it, right? It's got us there. Yeah. We have flexibility because of that. Now I'm thankful that I didn't have to go through all of the pain. There's still some pain, but not all of the pain that they went through during that transition. But it has afforded us to be ahead in this area that we can really start focusing on and on investing in things that allow us the flexibility to decide that we want it now, or maybe we don't in a couple of years, and we can quickly, you know, deprecate that solution and put something else in without having to be all entangled, right? We're doing things. Well, we've got platform strategies where we're building on top of really 3 main platforms: Drupal, Office 365, and Salesforce. And so we are kind of really intertwined in there, and we've made a decision that we're moving forward in those areas. It allows us, now that there are all these other third-party things that are integrating in, easily snap them in, easily snap them out, gives us some flexibility in using some of the latest technology without us having to make big investments in hardware and having the right human resources to manage those things. So yeah, so that our strategy basically, well, we do have, I didn't get into this, but we are still kind of migrating off of we have a few of those legacy things that are still out there, and we're wrapping that up this year. And we will be somewhat optimized, pretty much mostly optimized.
I'm legally required to say that I'm glad to hear that a strong enterprise architecture has been the central point of your approach. So that's good to hear.
Is that enterprise architecture? Right, throw it all up in the cloud?
That was
figure it out later.
Well, so we are. You say that, Bill, and so we're. That's what I was saying. We got to talk offline too, because we're actually putting in like a real enterprise architecture framework right now. Excellent. CTO is kind of heading that up, and so we're probably going to pick your brain on that.
That's what I'm here for. Even outside of the official coffee and cloud and coffee events, I'm always happy to chat offline. So I want to tie in this next question too, and I'm going to make it a two-parter, but I'm going to address David's half first, and then I'm going to have a follow-up because I'm guessing some of the things that we'll probably end up having to talk about here. What do you recommend for agencies that have stagnated for a long time, and long is in all caps here, so we know what that means. How do you recommend getting them out of their doldrums and start down an innovative path? So how do you start transformation in somebody that's kind of like mired?
Yeah, well, so you gotta drum up some innovation. So if you've gotten that far, of course some things are based around budget. However, you got to get some excitement around innovation. And so we did some of that too, right? We're going through campaigns and getting people interested in what are the technologies that are out there? What are the things that we can do? How can we engage our customer? Also, you got to get ingrained in understanding who the clients are, right? Even if you're only serving your internal folks, you need to understand what things they need and then start to align yourself. You've got to talk to them about what their visions are. What are their visions for success? What are they trying to accomplish? And then start to kind of align to that. You got to write it down though. You have to write it down, figure out what are those things that are the most important and really start to move towards that. Now, we're talking about, and if we're talking about antiquated equipment and technology, you got to move soon or else you'll be in a crisis. And then, that's the other thing is trying to stay out of crisis, because crisis will divert you from actually getting any further. So a little bit at a time dealing with those things that will get you out of a crisis or a high risk situation. And obviously you have to manage risk, understand what those are, and have some objectives that you're trying to get to understand what those risks are. So I would first start with getting a vision and getting people to buy into that vision, and then you can start to plan from there.
I think that resonates strongly with what I've seen as well. I also will just add my own little thread in there of don't let a good opportunity like a disaster go to waste. Like
there you go.
When you become a crisis, you can definitely use that crisis to be like, well,
that's right.
Now's the time to modernize because we have this crisis we have to deal with. Like having to suddenly give out billions of dollars in loans is a great opportunity to like move to the cloud. So never let a good disaster go to waste is one thing I would add.
That's right. That could be a strategy too, by the way. I don't think it's a good one, but not a good one.
But it's always everything is an opportunity.
If your argument is money all the time, inevitable is going to happen. But hold on, it is coming. The cavalry is coming because you will get money after you have that disaster.
Yes,
but to kind of finish this off a little bit, I think in some of the conversations I've had with you, in some of your previous roles. Driving innovation sometime was actually getting an understanding of what you had, right? I think one of the things that we talk about here is while throwing everything in the cloud and figuring out later is one option. It may not always be the best, right? Because your costs might go up. Just the migration challenges. But I mean, you have in your past, and I'm thinking kind of, I always like to give Bill a little plug, thinking Cloud Smart, right? Cloud Smart is getting an
Mhm.
understanding,
Yes.
of kind of the what you have before you make these
Right.
strategies, before you drive that innovation. I think you were kind of some, had some mastery around your previous organizations really
Yeah.
having a good hold on what you have. So
That, yeah, that's good. So yeah, because we had lots of at Justice just trying to figure out how we had massive, we had data center, we have so much, on-prem stuff, and just in lots of homegrown, you know, coded things, and just trying to figure out, how to actually get there. But, you guys said it, Bill, Chris, you have to understand what you got there. And everything is not the same. It's not, you shouldn't do things the same. Now that we know a lot more, when I was doing it before, it was everybody was just, I think we were saying cloud first, not cloud smart at that point. So it's like, okay, we got in cloud. How do we, people didn't even know what the cloud was. No real then.
Some still don't.
But, much less, how to get there. And so now we know that, you have to have a strategy about how you're getting, what you're doing, what are the reasons that you're going to the cloud. Then it was, you guys got to close every data center you have. And then, so that wasn't really a smart, situation. We're just like, we got to get out, and we got to get out by a date. But you got to understand what things are actually there. Not everything's meant to go in the cloud, and at least not right now, because there are things that you can't put there. They're not going to be efficient because they weren't written that way. We got to understand what things we're trying to do to save money, right? So of course, there were, probably 80% of the things, from a real, just purely infrastructure standpoint, could be put in there to get 50% savings for sure. But understanding that and making sure that you are taking the steps to actually achieve those goals, that you are thinking through all the activities that you have to do to ensure that you actually get to 50%, right? And so thinking, going down to understand what services and applications are on those, on the devices or servers that you're trying to get in there, where those services live, how the architecture is laid out from a data perspective. Need to understand all those things in order to ensure that you're going to make that number, because you may, move something now and you put it up there, and the resources are so high, now you pay more license costs for whatever that solution is that you've purchased. So all of those things need to be thought through, on a holistic perspective, before you just go diving in and just say we throw things up. For anybody who's still out there, getting ready to take the dive, the leap into the cloud, you really got to think through each piece, and you need to do it with every application or service or product that you are delivering. That consideration needs to happen.
yeah.
I
Yeah, so
mean,
David, that's coming from a contractor consultant view, right? Because that's, I think, our belief is always better for you to understand now what you have, rather than, to your point, you put it all out there and have to figure it out later. It becomes harder, right? And you may have
Right.
broken, to your point, you may have broken that user experience, which now you've got to fix.
That's right.
The
Right.
cultural piece.
Yeah.
You may have broken the path towards innovation may have gotten stalled and derailed because
Yep.
you broke something. So that understanding is key. And again, this is
Yeah.
a whole plug for Bill right now. The Cloud Smart gives agencies
Yes.
that ability and that
Yeah.
understanding and that roadmap to kind of sit back and go, okay, what applications do I have? What's my infrastructure like? What am I doing from a security standpoint? So
And if
Right,
I can-
exactly. That too, I didn't even get that in there. But yeah, you can group like things. You can group like things if you understand what they are to move it a little bit faster. But it's also helping you to understand your risk profile and control any consequences that may result from you changing. And Bill was getting ready to say something. Were you getting ready to say something, Bill?
I mean, I'm just smiling and nodding because everybody's saying all the things I normally have to say anyway. So I mean, this is perfect. I can just retire now. I'm glad that people are doing it. I mean, a lot of this is stuff that we talked about with Tom Santucci a couple of weeks back, you know, because he helped a lot on the application rationalization playbook for the CIO Council, which addresses a lot of these things. And a lot of that came from lessons learned at Justice so, you know, it's kind of just copying and pasting a lot of the things that we had already discovered from y'all. So this is perfect. So the one thing I want to kind of touch on, though, is that, like, you started to hint at it, which is like, it's not all sunshine and roses moving to cloud. It's not going to make your teeth whiter and your breath fresher and solve all of your problems. Can you talk for a few minutes about the challenges and some of the pitfalls that you all have kind of encountered? Like, if you just move everything to cloud on day one, obviously you're not going to have a good time. So what have you all been struggling with? And particularly the finance part that you mentioned, I would love to hear more details.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going first. I was going there first. So of course I wasn't here at ITA when they made the move. So things were pretty much getting more stable, like right when I came on board. But from a cost efficiency standpoint, so we just put in TBM this year, or we're at our, you know, first stage of putting TBM in and actually identifying all the data that we can use to be able to see how we're spending. And I got my first view last Friday, and I am like, what in the world is this? What are we doing here? Oh, well, these are all the things that we haven't been able to turn off yet. I'm like, well, we need to get rid of this. I'm spending, we're recording, so I'm not going to talk about how much. But
it's public data anyway, if it's in CPIC, so.
You won't be able to dissect to that level, though. But it's too much. And so when you just throw things up there and without having that plan, right? We talk about that plan, is like, it needs to be down to the last, you know, morsel, if you will, of what needs to be done to get everything off, because we have some things that people have forgotten about. And now it's illuminated. It's like, I'm asking, like, well, we're migrating from AWS to Azure, you know, for efficiency, cost efficiency for us, and, you know, utilization of the services that are available in Microsoft. But my bill is higher over here in AWS. Why? And most of my stuff is over here because there wasn't focus on getting those particular things off of there. And it is much more expensive because they are actually more of the infrastructure as a service stuff, right? So not only are we paying for the server, we're also paying for all of the software, all of the solutions that are installed on there. And we're also paying for it in enterprise. So that's the other thing. We're paying for an enterprise license because we're utilizing the enterprise license, all the other stuff, and everything else is standalone. So I'm paying, you know, so those are some of the pain points that you get to. You really have to outline that. It can't be more forceful on this. You really need to know down to the last point so that you don't leave legacy things, because we're now, I mean, that's money I could be using to do other things and get more staff and all of that. But it wasn't thought about. And it's important that you actually turn on those things that allow you to see. Now they're all there. They weren't widely used before. You really need to tag the data that's in there about how much you're spending on services. That will help you to make a much quicker decision to get more efficient, right? And so now I got a project coming up real short that's getting ready to trump everything else to get those things off.
I cannot foot stomp it more that, like, yes, tag all of your assets, tag all of your usage, make sure that all of that is visible. And, you know, the TCO thing that you're talking about, like, it may look cheaper over here than over there, but you didn't take bandwidth into consideration. You didn't take the cost to actually move it. You didn't take the staffing. You didn't take the SRE, like all of these things. Like, you gotta look at the big picture. And I just love that. Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, so you know, that then ties to a conversation we had with Mike Cassidy around training, right? Because you touched on it. We've heard a number of times on this show, whether it be security, that, you know, hey, you forgot to check the box that, yeah, you wanted us to do security, not you. You forgot to check the box on tagging the assets. You forgot to tag the box on, you know, line item invoicing. That, you know, Mike always talks about the importance of training. How are you keeping your teams kind of, again, ahead of or with the curve, to ride that wave at that speed of technology? Because
And if I can add on to that too, you all have built, from your description, an insanely strong digital team. How do you get those people in the first place and make sure, not just staying current for your existing staff, but bringing in these people when it's so hard to get people from the private sector to come to government and do all of this stuff? Like, both pieces, I think, are relevant.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first question, which was about the keeping the staff up to date. And so actually, we rely on our strategic partners a lot for, that. So when we change directions, we usually acquire the skill set. We spend a lot more focus on training our folks how to manage those teams, right? How to acquire the right resources, because it is kind of difficult. Everybody who's in government can probably say it's hard to keep your staff technically ready for the next thing, because you don't know what it is. It takes us when the budgets are cut, so the first thing to go is training, right? And so very difficult to do that. So for the more technical things, I tend to rely on strategic partners. Not always the case. I do believe, that you do need to have some folks on staff who are technical, who understand that things may not be pressing buttons. I don't think we actually even have folks that are actually pressing buttons anymore. They're doing more of a program management or project management thing, but they understand the technology. So we do enforce that, and every year we go through, twice a year actually, we create the individual development plans, and we outline the things that are in the strategic plan and in the operational plan to ensure that we have the right skill sets moving forward. And then we put some training dollars to that. And as well as we require everyone to have core training. They've got to be core ones, and a certain number of people have to be 2 and 3 as well. And project management training. Everyone has to do project management training, whether you are actually performing as a project manager or not, so that they understand. It's helping us to, that was one of the things we really needed to mature in all the work that we're doing. We really needed to mature that. So we stood up a PMO and a new framework for everyone to follow, and then everyone's got to have that PM training to go with it. The other question you asked me, Bill, was about the digital strategy. Do you remember what you?
Sorry, it was building the digital team up. It's not just.
Oh, how do we get the
hiring.
Networking?
Yeah.
Networking. Networking.
So events, going on panels and shows related to cloud, for instance, like this one, that sort of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Participating in ATARC,
That's right. Yeah, that's it. That is definitely it. That's how we do it. Because yes, I don't necessarily like to talk, although you guys probably can't tell that right now, but I don't like to talk a lot, but I do it because it's necessary. Like, I have to meet people and know, where the talent is, and get people interested in coming to work at TSI or ITA.
Well, I think you've convinced a lot of people to come join today. I think a lot of us are just going to get our resumes together immediately after this conversation. So
Right.
If you're hiring, feel free to plug that.
I am
right now.
I am hiring.
Perfect.
Link in with me if you're interested.
So let me tie in this last question, because I really want to make sure that we get to it, because it's the one I hear all of the time from every agency I've ever talked to. How did you manage some clients and leadership's resistance to migrating to the cloud? I mean, you came in when the move had already shifted, but I know there's still people who are like, I still want to do things the old way. If you have lawyers there, I still want my word perfect, Right.
So that was my problem at Justice. They were kind of already used to it. Now we did still have some things that sit on people's desks, the powerful desktops on the floor, right? That we had to get up there, and there was resistance to that. But you know what we did, and I'll just say, and a lot of those are like the data things, right? Mm-hmm. They built out things on their desktop. We have to buy them gigantic laptops, to be able to process the stuff. But we built the tools out in the enterprise environment, and we showed them how it can be done. So I push my data team all the time. It's like, you show and prove. I want you to do it, show them how the functionality is there, and then go out and evangelize. We created community of practice around it. So people can now talk to each other. We're telling them the great things we're doing. They're jumping in, talk about the problems that they have and the things they would like to do and what they're doing. And so then everybody is more apt to want to just, now they're like, oh, great, we got a lake. I want to put it in the lake. You know?
Yeah.
Right, we're doing warehousing now. Yes, let's do it. I want to do that. Can you show me how to tag? Who's going to manage taxonomy? So now they're all talking about all of these things, and they're very excited about the tools that are available to them in the cloud. At Justice, yeah, so you talked to Mike, so you already know all of the things that were problems are problems, and that is one, right? Dealing with attorneys, they got to have their word perfect, and guess what? It can't put it anywhere. It's not in the cloud. It's not, you know, we got other things that you can use, but they don't want to do it. And so the big key, though, is you got to have, so I talked about user adoption in the very beginning. Like before you start making these moves, you got to understand who are the blockers and what the blockers are. And you got to figure out how to convince them that those blockers are not really, you know, that's it. You're really going to get way more. What's in it for you? You're going to get so much more if you move over here. And here, let me show you. Let me take this document. Let me show you what that looks like. And so those are the things that my team focuses in on. So they specifically will, you know, survey a group of people through focus groups or whatever and say, here are the things that are going to be a problem. And they'll have like a big placemat of, okay, this group, we need to do these things. And this group, we need to do these things to make sure that we can get past their blockers so that they will adopt. So that's the big thing, but it wasn't that easy. I wasn't there long enough to see through the actual, you know, I was there for the strategy, but I didn't get to see the execution go. But it was push and pull with, you know, aligning goals and objectives, you know, for them, you know, and like you said, so it's territorial. You know, we can't, you know, apps team, you've owned this infrastructure for a long time, but you can't own it anymore.
Right.
Right.
I'll give you something that you can use, but you can't own it anymore. We got to bring it all into one. And so, yeah, that was definitely a challenge. And at the end of the day, you know, leadership had to just say, we're doing it. Yeah. And so the money, I mean, I put forth the case. Here's what we're going to say. So we've got to go.
Yeah, and when you got to plan 2 years out, I mean, you need to make those decisions now, right? You can't.
That's right.
And again, and I think that's the other key point is in technology anymore, you can't wait with the way the budget cycles and the strategies and
That's right.
procurements happen.
That's right. Right. Yep.
All right. Well, I think we're coming to the end here. That when Nicole pops on, that usually means we're getting to the end of the end of the show.
Nicole,
so
she gave us the head nod. Time to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Play us off.
Can we sing the song? Does anybody remember the song? It's time. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So thank you very much. And
Copyright doesn't allow us to sing that song. I'm sorry.
So the next show is going to be April 15th, where we'll have actually, speaking of DOJ, we'll have Monique Broke and Peter Lee from JMD, and get to hear some of the great things that they're doing, as well as some of the great things that they've done, and obviously working with Rona actually in the past. So again, thank you everybody for joining. Really enjoyed it, Rona. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure speaking to you and getting to chat challenges, and we always love plugging Cloud Smart for Bill. It's always
So the check is in the mail. Thank you very
exactly.
much.
Yeah. We didn't plan that. We actually didn't plan it, but I thank you guys for having me. This was good. This is a great start to my day, by the way.
Well, we're happy to be a part of it. And Nicole's going to snap a quick picture. So
let me get my.
You did great. It was nice seeing you.
Awesome.
You too.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good
All right.
day.
Have a great day,
Thank you so much.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.